This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to MSE Countdown with your host, David Rosenberg and Chase Sussex. The countdown starts now.
We're back, everybody. Welcome to the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Countdown. I'm your host, David Rosenberg. I'm here with Chase Sussex. Chase, what is up, my man?
Oh, what's going on, everybody?
So, we got a lot to talk about. We've been away for a couple of weeks because of some technical difficulties on both of our ends once again, but we're here for good now. We finally figured out everything, and we even have an interview that we're going to add at the end of this episode. So stay tuned, and the countdown starts now. Our first story tonight is, of course, Michigan baseball. They're heading to the College World Series. Chase, I know we've talked about this a little bit earlier when they were playing. Have you watched the games recently?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is must-see baseball right now. I mean, these Michigan baseball's playing absolutely lights out. They look so good. They were one of those teams who were kind of like I can't remember exactly what news outlet it was, but they had them as like the last four in, and you know they were one of those teams who was.
They were the last four in.
They were one of the last four in,
yeah.
And you know they had a lot of people had them getting eliminated a lot early. A lot of people didn't have them even. Most of the super regionals, and here they are competing in the College World. Yeah, the odds were terrible, but they are now in the College World Series final, and they'll go up against Vanderbilt, and that's a very exciting matchup there. Vanderbilt is a very good baseball team, and Coach Bakich actually has connections to Vanderbilt. He used to coach at Vanderbilt, and the Vanderbilt's head coach are still very close. Pretty cool, and
yeah, they had a little moment at the press conference today. They were just taking pictures with the trophies and stuff, but you could see the respect that the two men had for them. And then, some of the quotes that were pulled by the reporters that were in the room, it was just very nice and stuff. It kind of reminds me of when UCF was playing Duke in the NCAA tournament. Coach Johnny Dawkins for UCF had been an assistant coach for Mike Krzyzewski. So there was that kind of mutual respect, and that's kind of the same deal that's going on there. And I think that makes the game a little more fun, At least I would like to be up against my mentor, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a cool moment, I think, for everybody. It's kind of like, when the Lions play the Patriots, you get a chance to kind of go up against the mentor. We saw it last year, and the fact that Patricia actually beat, Belichick in that game, versus mentor in that kind of sense, or mentor versus mentee, I should really say. But, that's always such a cool story. I think it's such an awesome mentality to kind of play on. And, I definitely if there was a chance where, if I was in that situation, I definitely want to play against my mentor.
Absolutely. Let's talk about how Michigan got there, because we're jumping ahead to Vanderbilt already. But, the last time Michigan took the diamond, it was an impressive outing. They beat Texas Tech 15-3. Did you catch that game, Chase? I tuned in a bit late. I came in just as it had been tied, I think. It was 3-3. Or maybe I think Texas Tech might have had the lead 3-2 when I tuned in. But it was obviously nothing but Wolverine offense from there. Jimmy Kerr was absolutely fantastic with the 2 home runs, and Akeo really impressed me defensively at second. He stuck a couple of balls that I don't understand how a man, a hand, and a glove can stop a ball in that manner. But Chase, what'd you think of the game?
The game was great. I mean, they had to come out and they had to beat the Texas Tech team that had really nothing to lose. They had already lost to Michigan once, and they were hungry for that win. They wanted to stay in the tournament, and if they won that game, and another winner-take-all game happened on Saturday, and I kind of thought that Texas Tech had Carl Kaufman's number. I mean, Kaufman definitely struggled a little bit early. I know Michigan jumped out to an early 2-0 lead, but Texas Tech quickly stormed back against Michigan. I think, like you said, they took the lead 3-2, and after that, pretty much Michigan did not stop. I mean, they scored 13 more runs after that, and did not let basically that entire game. I think they had it was something crazy 12 2-out RBIs or something like that during that game. It's 10 or 12. I couldn't remember the exact number, but they
I
had
think 10 of the 14 RBIs that were hit came with 2 outs. And
yeah.
funny enough, the Wolverines ended up leaving 14 on base, which would probably upset a fan if the score were not the way it is. It just was the case of sometimes it has to end leaving guys on base because you've done enough damage. The other stat that I saw that was really interesting was that Texas Tech pitchers issued 12 walks, against the Wolverines, and I think that's their season high. I'm not sure. I didn't comb through everything, but I think I read that. But seeing them give up so many guys on base, that's gotta, Michigan's offense is nothing but bloodthirsty right now, right? If they see an opportunity, it's like a shark in the water. They're gonna take it and strike. And clearly they did not relent in this. You mentioned, we both mentioned the Jimmy Kerr home runs. He actually had 4 hits in the game, and Jesse Franklin had 3. So it was really just a good all-around offensive display by the entire team. I don't think anyone went hitless, but could be wrong. You want to talk a little bit about what Vanderbilt means, as the next opponent for Michigan? Obviously, best of 3, isn't it? Or is it one game?
Yeah, so the next series
best
in the College World Series is best of 3.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt just picked up. They actually had a comeback win against Louisville. I hadn't seen that game.
I saw the game. Did you see the pitcher who?
Oh yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Not safe for work.
He was fired up. Yeah, I was gonna say not safe for work.
Yeah, we can't say the words on this show, but if you find the video on Twitter, which there is, you see that this pitcher was pumped up, as he describes it. He was hyped, and he had some words after striking out one of the Vanderbilt batters. And I think this is a case of either you love this or you hate this. Before I give my take, do you love it or do you hate it? Pitchers getting so fired up that they're hurling expletives at their opponent.
I mean, you can definitely really go either way with it. I didn't personally have too much of an issue with it. I mean, the kid just has a lot of energy and he's got a lot of excitement for the game. I don't really know what the kid necessarily said or did where he had to cuss him out, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever. I mean, that's the kind of fiery spirit you like to have. I mean, the kid ate his words a little bit when, he ended up blowing that lead late, Vanderbilt come back in the top of the 9th, but it's one of those things where, like I said, he's getting fired up and he paid for it a little bit. He went a little bit too far and he paid for it. But like I said, I don't really have an issue with it because, like I said, he did what he did and he ended up eating his words. So, like I said, I don't really have any issue with it because I wouldn't say necessarily justice was served, but, sort of my thought on it. I mean, when you get into a game, you get pretty intense and, stuff like that happens. That's just that's
absolutely. It made me think back to my high school baseball days. We had a hated rival within our district where, things were said, between teams and even parents cursed at players. I mean, not on our side, but certainly the other rotten side said some things that were not appropriate on the other side of the fence. But it just made me think back to how intense the game can be. And really at the time, player to player, you don't mind that. The person's not cursing at you berating you. They're just so fired up and pumped up about giving their team one single advantage that maybe they didn't have a second before. And I'm perfectly okay with this. This is a kid that I want on my team because I believe that kind of temperament can be channeled into something really great in his pitching. You want that kind of emotion. So I'm perfectly fine with this, but I understand that people are going to take issue, especially, you're on camera, you're in a national stage. So this is just really a growing moment for that young man. But I have no problem with the passion that he played with. And ultimately he took the L, like you said. So if you are a hater, he got his just desserts.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's just a pure competitor there, and like I said, I know a lot of people were kind of making fun of him. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, how can you be, act like such a tough guy when you have sports goggles on?" But
but I mean, they were eliminated, so
yeah, like I said, they got eliminated.
It's Vanderbilt.
It was a good game. Yeah, it's a good game. Vanderbilt's a very good baseball team.
They got the kid who struck out the 19 batters in one game. Who is he?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to discredit here about Vanderbilt baseball. I mean, Vanderbilt is a really good club. I would have actually rather played Louisville than Vanderbilt just because of how good Vanderbilt is. But honestly, I think, bias aside, I think it'll be a close series. Honestly, I think it'll go to 3 games. But I have to give my opinion the fact that Michigan is just playing better baseball in terms of just, I don't know, they're on a roll. I mean, to get here, they were one of the last 4 in. They beat number 1 seeded UCLA. They beat a good Texas Tech team with 3 MLB draft picks twice. Handled team they played off the top of my head, Florida State. They shut out Florida State. So I mean, they a road to get here, and they proved everyone wrong. And I think it's one of those things that I don't see them stopping now. It's
absolutely. I think Michigan, like you said, they are playing really good baseball. I was just thinking about, my prediction for this series, and normally I would probably go with Vanderbilt in 2. I wouldn't even give it a game 3, just because I don't always bet on the underdog, and I don't want to let my bias come into play. But like that 15-3 outing, that was a message. That was, we're not here to play, we're here to dominate. We're here to take what we believe to be as ours. And I think when you're playing with that kind of mindset, there's really no telling how far that'll go until it stops. So I believe that it will be a 3-game series, and I think it'll go right down to the wire. I think it'll be a high scoring 3rd game, with maybe a low scoring 1st and 2nd game. If that's too much of a prediction, who knows? But that's what I got for this series. Anything else on Michigan baseball?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, they just got to keep on a roll. They really got to keep doing the same thing they did against Texas Tech. Just suffocate on defense, and just don't let up. Don't let their foot off the gas pedal on offense. They're up by 10. Keep pushing the lead, honestly, because Vanderbilt's a good baseball team, and it can't afford to take a break. You gotta keep your foot on the gas pedal for all 9 innings.
Exactly.
That's basically all I have to say for Michigan. But
so our second story tonight, we're gonna talk about the Detroit Pistons. There were 2 drafts, but we're gonna talk about the Pistons draft first. Did you watch the NBA draft? I know I watched all of it. I think it was 6-7 hours. I mean, what a production they make that thing, man.
I personally hate how long the NBA draft is. I didn't watch the entire thing, to be entirely honest with you. I watched the first round. I got to the first round. Once they started the second round, I was like, this is taking forever. I got through about the Pistons pick, and then in the first round, and then I kind of tuned out. And then at that point, once the first round ended, I was like, I'm turning this off.
Yeah, well,
that's just me though. I'm not a big NBA guy, so maybe other people, tuned in. But the draft is so long; they drag the picks out like crazy.
No, I hear you. Obviously the anticipated pick that the Pistons had was the 15th overall pick, the first pick outside of the lottery. But that doesn't necessarily mean much. Guys like Kawhi Leonard have been drafted at 15. Giannis Antetokounmpo also drafted at 15. So, realistically, it's not like a death sentence for a team to pick right in the middle. What the Pistons did do with the pick is probably surprise everyone, because there were some good names still on the board. But they took Sekou Doumbouya, I hope I pronounced that correctly, with the 15th pick. I believe he's out of France. Is that correct?
He's French.
Yes, he's French. But he's a 6'9" forward, and he can shoot the ball. So that is kind of the way the league is trending. And I think that makes a little bit of sense, because if you look at the move the Pistons made the day before, they sent John Lure in return for Tony Snell and the 30th pick in the draft. Okay, so John Lure is kind of like a big white guy who can shoot the 3. But he had like a big fat, I think like $14-15 million contract for the next couple of years or something. And he kind of needed to go, not from like a playing standpoint, but just kind of like his role on the team. He's probably better suited elsewhere. So that trade kind of makes more sense, because I think that they're going to use Sekou to kind of get a little bit into that role. Obviously, he'll need to develop, and there's really no telling if he'll be right over, even though I think he will. But there's always the option that he's 19, I think, right? He's very.
Oh yeah, he's like 18 or 19.
18 or 19. Yeah, he's.
I think he was the youngest eligible player in the draft.
Oh, so he's definitely 18.
Yeah.
So 18. Zion was 18. But then the Pistons had the 30th overall pick as well. Based on that Lure trade that I just mentioned. And when that pick came around, I guess they didn't see anyone that they wanted, but. So they traded for 4 second-round picks over 2020, 2021, 2023, and a 2024 pick, which is like some long projecting, trading for, which kind of didn't make sense at the time. But they actually used 2 of those picks to grab a second-round pick later. So they ended up with 3 picks in total. And the 2 guys that they picked in the second round were, oh boy, you're going to kill me for pronouncing this, but Davidus Servidus? How'd I do, Chase?
That's pretty good.
I think so.
I probably wouldn't have done much better, so.
Maybe it's Davidus Servidus?
Yeah, it sounds right.
Okay, Servidus. No, this is the 18-year-old, 6'8" kid. They're pretty much, it's funny because they both kind of seem the same. If you're a Pistons fan, I think, I know for a fact that you're really upset on Twitter because I've read all of the tweets, and it seems that you really are upset with a foreign guy getting drafted when there were like a bunch of quote unquote blue chip guys out there, guys from like North Carolina still on the board. And I know a lot of people wanted like a strong guard, but obviously there's a plan here. And, last year I forgot his name the other week, and I'm forgetting his name this week, but who did they draft? What was his name? Brown?
Brown? Yeah, Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown. And he turned out really well, in my opinion. That was a very good pick. So if the Pistons are trading back here, I think I really trust them. Even if they're picking some guys with some funky names that I can't really pronounce. I think that these guys have a chance, like if you listen to the professionals, the analysts, the people that have actually watched far more tape than I have. I've seen what you guys have seen. I've seen the clips that they posted because this guy was not on my radar and he was not on anyone's radar, but really the scouting team of the Pistons. They had a plan here. But I just think that this is a moment where you've heard Philadelphia go through it. You need to trust the process. There is a plan, all right? They're unloading cap space. They're getting talented young players. Maybe they're going to trade one of those big guys. Like I've heard a lot of people rumble about, does this mean Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond could be in a trade? I don't think so necessarily, but they are planning something, and maybe they're going to sign someone. But if you look at the way the starting lineup is right now, you got Reggie Jackson, you got Snell, you got Griffin, you got Drummond, you got all these guys, and then you have these couple of rookies that are really, really good. In a few years, that 8 seed that the Pistons were at this year moves up, and they're competitive. And I think the Raptors show that you can be competitive with no-name guys. You look like a Fred VanVleet, right? Like, he's not a no-name guy by any means, but nowadays, but he went undrafted, people, he had something to prove, and often like those guys, you're looking for high character guys. So maybe that's what the Pistons are going for in this draft. As always, I think drafts are really, really hard to predict, or grade, because these kids aren't going to be in their prime for, 4 or 5 years, right? So how are we supposed to, other than Zion, who is a sure bet? You know what I mean?
Zion is probably, sure bet, but I wouldn't say there weren't any other sure bets. There were a lot of other really good, talented kids who came out of the draft.
Okay, but I know Zion's the only one that I'm confident is going to be an all-star for like the next 10 seasons. And I can guarantee that. It's like, you don't know what you're getting. You get a Giannis Antetokounmpo, you get a Kawhi Leonard at 15, and that maybe, who knows who was upset with that pick at the time, right? But look how the thing turned out. I just think that now more than ever, with Golden State falling, the league's kind of wide open, and if the Pistons have a plan, which they very clearly do, I think this is encouraging.
The Sekou Doumbouya pick, I don't really think he gets going right away. That's my issue with it. I don't think he's a kid I don't think he's necessarily a plug-and-play type kid.
No, he's not.
Gonna be like,
but I didn't mention him in the starting lineup. The Pistons have like $20+ million in cap right now, so they can sign someone to bring in to kind of bolster that lineup and get competitive. Like Drummond is still very young, and Griffin's got a lot of years left on his contract, I believe. I mean, some of them are option years, but if they want to put this thing together, they absolutely can, and they're building it for a couple of years. You know what I mean? Everyone always wants to win tomorrow, and that's just not going to happen.
I mean, that's just what it happens. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people were saying that the draft kind of looked like they were sort of rebuilding just because of the way they did. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, I think they just drafted for, I don't know. They don't really have a ton of depth. The Doumbouya kid, he mainly plays power forward, but he can play small forward as well.
But he's a good player, is he not?
He's a great athlete. Don't get me wrong. The kid's great.
If he turns out to be the way they think he's going to be in a few years, essentially you traded Lure, right? You got this kid. You replaced some of the second round picks that you dropped in your previous stupid trades. The Blake Griffin trade pretty much depleted them of all draft picks forever. But I think that this was just very strategic, almost like when you're playing like NBA 2K19 and you're like, all right, I gotta finesse the system. I think they were playing and wheeling and dealing, and I like that. And I think that ultimately this draft will be looked back on as a good one. And I think part of that's going to be the third guy that they drafted, who we haven't talked about, is Jordan Bone. Did you see the video of him getting drafted, or like his at his draft party?
Yeah, that video pretty much went viral. I mean, it basically looked like he wasn't going to get drafted in the video, and he was, I'm not sure who it was. I'm not sure if it was his brother or something like that. Yeah, it was addressing the crowd, and it was kind of just, telling him, oh, it's not the end of the world. You can get, didn't get drafted. You're still such a good talent. Another team will find you. And all of a sudden on the TV behind them that they had, someone screamed out, oh my God, look, you got drafted. And then he gets like bombarded by all of his family members and stuff, and which I think is so cool. An awesome moment for him. And, I know it said, I believe the Sixers ended up making the pick, but it does end up going to the Pistons. So, just overall a great pick there.
Yeah, and he's really
the kid was really talented.
Yeah, he's athletic as heck. So and he's a guard, right?
Yeah, I mean he's a guard. He fits.
Isn't that what everyone wanted, anyways?
Yeah, I know. Everyone always complains about that, and that's the thing. Whenever someone doesn't pick about the way they wanted someone mocked or whatever, they wanted Carson Edwards and they wanted Ball and whoever else they wanted. If it doesn't go their way, it's automatically a bad pick. You know what I mean?
People were upset because wasn't like Nasser Little still up there or something like?
And Nasir Little was still on the board, and everyone wanted him. And when they drafted this kid out of France, he's relatively unknown. This kid was mocked in the top 10 though for most of the draft process. So some people should know who they are. So much, and we'll get into that later more when I talk about the Red Wings draft. But when people go like, "Who is this? Who is this?" Well, when this kid was clearly, the kid that they drafted was mocked in the top 10, pretty much the entire draft process. So people should know who this guy is. It's not, that's not an issue. The fact that people don't know who he is, just because you're upset with it, doesn't mean you get to parade around and say it was a bad pick just because you disagree with it.
And that's kind of my point here, is that people are getting upset over something that they can't even accurately judge. If this guy turns out to be one of the best players in the NBA in, say, 4 years, 5 years, they'll be eating their words over. So it's just, my warning to everyone is just calm down, see how it plays out. You got to trust the owners of the team, and I know that's very hard to because you haven't seen a Pistons playoff team in forever. But like I said, based on their draft last year, what they did with one pick, right? Like, they did a good job. So I'm trusting right here that they made the right choice. But let's move on. We're going to move on to our story 3 today. That is the Red Wings draft. Chase, this is all you, man.
So, like I mentioned, kind of in my Sussex and 60 segment that we went over, this pick was somewhat controversial, even though it wasn't necessarily supposed to be. So, and I explained why, and I'll explain why again. So, clearly, like there was a lot of good centers on the board. And I'm going to kind of describe. So, there was the top 5 picks. You basically had the top 5 talent that weren't necessarily definitive. Definitely, the top 2 in Jack Hughes and Capo Caco were 100% the top prospects in the draft, and they were going to be solid there. But you had your guys like Alex Turcotte and stuff like that. They had them that were pretty much solidified top 5 talent. And then once you got out of that talent a little bit, anywhere from 6 beyond in terms of talent was a little bit up in the air. I would like to call them blanket picks because they all fit under one blanket. And I feel like for the most part, they're all very similar in skill. Like they're all going to turn out really well. So there were a lot of good players left on the board. The Red Wings have been mocked to pick this time. So their top 2 picks were either Dylan Cousins or... So both of them were still on the board during the pick, and Red Wings fans were waiting to hear who it was, which center out of the 2 they were going to pick. And then they drafted Moritz Seider, a defenseman out of Mannheim from the German league. And you could just hear the reaction in the entire, stadium in Vancouver. I mean, everyone was just shocked over this pick, and it's definitely out of left field. But I think that's what Yzerman was brought in to do. What Steve Yzerman was brought in to do was to shake things up. And I think it's disappointing to hear the fact that people are so disappointed with Yzerman over this pick when he made a bold move. And now when he makes a bold move here by taking a chance on Moritz Seider, the move, because it's not who they wanted.
I mean, it's kind of the same deal as the Pistons, it sounds like,
The Pistons, that's the thing. These fans think they're... I mean, I'm no expert on it. I don't know what all I've done is I've done some research on this kid since the Red Wings drafted him, and he looks really good. He played, a lot of these kids, especially in the U.S. development team that you saw guys like, Trevor Zegras come from, 18-year-old kids. But this Moritz Seider kid at age 17 was playing against 20 and 21-year-olds in the U20 division. I mean, that's just he played among men and won the MVP award in that league. He played in U20 and won MVP as a 17-year-old. He was what was considered a double minor in that league. I don't really, he's played against some great competition in Germany. He didn't really play much for his club. I think he played like 29 games and scored like goals and 4 assists, which isn't a whole lot, but he's a defenseman. That's not really what he's meant to do. He's a big body. He's 6'4". He can skate really well. He's super talented. He's, a physical skater. And he does everything the Red Wings are asking him to do. I remember all last year when the Red Wings drafted Phil Zadina, people were complaining about the fact that they didn't draft a defenseman when they needed defense, and they finally addressed the defense this year, and everyone's upset about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you mentioned everyone was predicting that it was going to be one of the 2 centers, and they're waiting. Who's it going to be? And then it's a defenseman. And, we talked already, people naturally are going to get angry because they're wrong. But people seem to just be upset that they're focusing on defense. Now, I mean, Cronwell, we talked about this. Isn't he potentially retiring?
Considering retirement, they have 2 defensemen in Jonathan Ericsson and Trevor Daley who will be free agents next offseason. So they have a lot of holes to fill in the defense. This is a defensive core that has not been very good. People have complained for multiple years about the fact that they haven't addressed defense enough, and when they address defense, it's an issue. 3 of their 4 first picks, they drafted 3 defensemen and 1 winger between the first and second round because they had 3 picks in the second round. They addressed defense greatly, and I think that's awesome. I mean, everyone was like, "Oh, it's not the best player available." We drafted best player available last year, and everyone was pissed about it. But then this year, we draft for need, and everyone's upset again. I don't know. Like, I can't believe that people are, getting upset at Steve Yzerman, out of all people. The people who have begged Yzerman to come in as GM for the longest time, for the past 5 years since he left for Tampa Bay. And he comes in here in his first draft, he's getting criticized for his draft picks because he didn't pick who they want him to draft. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that's like these kids are called prospects for a reason.
No, absolutely.
Prospects because nobody knows how they're going to turn out.
But
And is it this kid's fault if Moritz Seider doesn't turn out? Is it his fault that he got drafted 6th overall? No, it's not. The kid, at least the kid tried. We don't know how in the world this kid's going to turn out. And what I've looked at his tape, he looks really, really good. He's played against some solid competition. He probably won't come in year one, but if the Red Wings had drafted a center, they wouldn't have come in year one either. So this kid's going to take a couple years to develop. You'll probably see him he'll probably either go back to Germany next year or he'll possibly play in the AHL if he shows that he's worthy of it. He's eligible to play in the AHL next year, which would be fantastic if he could play, in just the minor leagues in his first year. So I think it's a good pick, but I think a lot of people disagree with me. I'm hoping that other people start to warm up on the pick once they start to see him play, but I think this kid's going to.
No, I think you're right. They got to give him a chance, got to see how he plays. Yzerman, I don't want to repeat myself too much, because these segments are now sounding back to back like the same thing. But there's a plan, and you have to trust the process, right? You wanted Yzerman, and you got him. Let him do his thing. Defense is a need, and there's nothing wrong with addressing the need just because it's not the need you wanted them to address first. It's not a life-threatening need, so you understand. But there was more than one pick. There were 11, correct?
There were 11 total picks. They ended up trading one of their 5th rounders for a 6th and a 7th, so there was 11 total.
So I don't know if you want to read off all of those names, and you can talk about whoever you want to talk about.
I'm going to see if I can try to find those names really quick. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I'll go in order to the best of my ability. So I remember in the 2nd round, they drafted defenseman, the 35th overall pick. His name is Antti Tuomisto. He's a defenseman from Finland. He's 6'4". This is the more offensive defenseman. He scored a decent amount with his Finnish team, and he looks to be really good. And then the first winger that they drafted was in the 2nd round was Robert Mastrosimone, which is kind of a crazy last name, but he's a left winger. He's from the U.S. Hockey League. He's from the development team as well. And then their 3rd of their 2nd round pick was Albert Johansson, defenseman from Sweden. Their 3rd round pick was Albin Gru. He's a right winger from Sweden. Their 4th round pick was center Ethan Phillips from Canada. And this kid's a little bit interesting because this Ethan Phillips kid, he's only like 145 pounds as a center, and he's like 18. So he's definitely got some weight to put on. But then they have defenseman Cooper Moore, who they took in the 5th round. And he got drafted out of high school, which is pretty widely unknown in the NHL. A lot of guys are usually already in college or play for a different club by then, like some sort of development team. But he didn't play for the at high school. I can't remember exactly what the name of the high school is. And then in the 6th round, they drafted Elmer Soderblom, is a right winger from Sweden. And then they drafted, also in the 6th round, was Gustav Berglund, defenseman from Sweden. In the 7th, they drafted, stay with me here, Kirill, I think is how you say that.
Good try.
Good try. Yeah. He's a left winger from Russia, and then their final pick was Carter Gylander, who's a goaltender from and everyone calls it their yearly goalie because it seems like the Red Wings take a goalie every year, which is fine. I mean, I think it's good, but like I said, that's how it ended up turning out. I think overall it's a pretty solid draft, but like I said, I can't really make too because these kids are prospects. You really don't know how they're going to turn out. But for sure, I think you really have to focus on the first 2 rounds. The first 4 kids that I mentioned, they're probably going to make the most impact on the team. I think Steve Yzerman is a 2nd-round wizard. If you've seen what he's done with Tampa Bay, he drafted Nikita Kucherov. He was drafted in the 2nd round. And, he's probably one of the best skaters in the NHL right now. So, like I said, I'm trusting Yzerman in the fact that he did a good job with the draft. He definitely made some interesting picks, but that's what I like about him. I mean, the fact that they're a little bit out of left field, he took a couple bold picks, and that's the kind of stuff you like to see. That's the kind of stuff they brought Eisman in to do, and and that's what he did. So, but definitely an interesting, and I would say overall a good draft haul. Heavily defensive, but I think a good draft haul from the Red Wings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the crown jewel of this thing is Seider, and he's kind of too young to know how it's going to turn out, but we know that he's promising and he's one heck of a player. He's just ridiculously young. So, he, like you said, he probably won't play this year, but if he does, I mean, that will be exciting for some people. And I think, Zadina kind of won over some people, some of the haters, and I think Seider will do the same thing, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's so tough to see how these kids will turn out, but I mean, I know he'll give. I think one thing Eisman definitely emphasized in this draft was the fact that he drafted every single kid with his motor. For their motor. It was the kids who were going to go out and who were going to compete. They were going to put it all. They were going to leave it all on the ice, and I think that's what you're going to get from Moritz Seider.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is that it for the Red Wings draft? All 11
I believe
picks?
so.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, on to the fourth. Our fourth story tonight is the Detroit Tigers are still bad. They have won 4 games in the month of June, and to put that into perspective, they have had 4 off days in the month of June as well, so they lose a lot. If you're going to watch the Tigers, you're probably going to watch a loss. Over the past 2 weekends, they got swept both home and away by the Cleveland Indians, and I think each game was more painful than the next. They mustered up 1 win against Pittsburgh, and then they blew the second game of that, and somehow they managed 1 win against Tampa Bay earlier in the month too. But it has not been a good run for the Tigers. Matthew Boyd is not pitching to the level that he was pitching earlier in the season. It's not like he's really bad or anything, but most people consider Matthew Boyd as a valuable trade piece for the Detroit Tigers over this summer. And if they want to use him to the best of their ability, they might have to move him soon, because he's not playing at the same rate that he was before. And you talk about a small sample size. You have a couple of starts at the beginning of the season and you do really well. All of a sudden people are hot on you, right? Everyone's picking you up on their fantasy team. Everyone starts to know your name. This is just how it works. But then you start to cool off, right? Like, you remember names like, it's like the Jeremy Lin effect, right? Or a Trevor Story from the Rockies
for sure.
A while back. He's still a great player, but he was very, very valuable for a select amount of time. And you need to move Boyd at that time, because I don't think it's in the Tigers' plans right now to keep Boyd and pay him the money that he'll probably deserve in a few years when this contract is up. They'll be ready to pay other guys, guys like Casey Mize and stuff like that. So it just doesn't really work out financially, and I think you have to move him sooner, because he's starting to lose more games. He's starting to give up more earned runs. He's starting to walk a little bit more. So they might need to get rid of him soon. I hate to say that, because Boyd has been one of my favorite players to watch this year, but with him breaking down on the Tigers, that's probably part of the reason they've only had 4 wins this season. This month, not this season. That would be terrible. And then the other pitcher is Spencer Turnbull, who's still been pitching decently well. He's kind of hit or miss depending on the night. But when he's on, it doesn't seem like he's getting the run support. So that's just a really terrible mix, meaning that the Tigers' pitching doesn't really matter when it comes to winning games. They just have to get lucky and really stroke a pitcher early in a game and trust the bullpen not to give up too much of the lead, which they often end up doing. So there's really not much to go on about the Tigers, but I know there's something you want to talk about, Chase, about Nicholas Castellanos.
Yeah, so it's a little bit old. It's a little bit of older news, but if you guys hadn't heard already, that Nicholas Castellanos was actually approached by the Tigers to make a move over to first base. And I think it was the fact that he didn't want to make the move. He had already been moved around quite a bit. His primary position was third base, and he was asked to move out to the outfield. I think he moved over from the right field, and I think that's where he is right now in right.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And they asked him to move over to first, and he said, "I'm not going to move unless I know that I'm part of the long-term plans here with the Tigers." He goes, "I want to know." He's like, "I want a contract extension. I want to know that I'm a piece of this team." And he said, "I'm not making the move unless you guys give me a contract extension." And
they said
no. So yeah, they basically said no. So he said, "I'm standing in right field." So I don't really think that bodes too well for Castellanos' future with the Tigers. It's a little unfortunate because I do enjoy watching Nicholas Castellanos play baseball. But like I said, it doesn't really look like the Tigers are necessarily ready to admit the fact that he's in their long-term plans.
Yeah, I believe he, along with Boyd and Shane Green, will be traded this summer, which is probably heartbreaking if you're a Tigers fan. I mean, they're the only bright spots of the Tigers. If you're a fan of Miguel Cabrera, it's because of his history. He's still playing well, but the contract that he's taking and causing for the Tigers payroll is just so massive that it's hard to smile through all of that. So yeah, it doesn't bode well, but I like the move by Castellanos focusing on his future, because if you're a player like Castellanos, you're not hitting well enough to be considered a great first baseman, right? And we don't even know how good he is at first base. He wasn't good at third. He's not great in the outfield. He's getting better, but he works as a good hitting right fielder right now. And he'll get a better paying contract if he stays at right field, especially if he probably assumes the Tigers are going to trade him. And if they trade him, he'll probably play out the season on maybe a contending team this season, but he'll have his choice in the offseason. So I think that's part of it. He wants to keep his value as high as he can, and it's a smart move, because if you put Castellanos into the name of American League first baseman, he is not, near the top, and he might be near the top offensively when you come to right fielders, you see? So I think it's a smart move by him, and, Chase, do you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is just one of those things where he's looking out for his future, and that's smart. I mean, as a player, but you're also your own individual. You and yourself are a business. You're a businessman yourself as well as an athlete. So you need to look out for your future and need to look out what's best for you. So it's not really a bad thing. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, well, he's chasing the money." In that position, I probably would too, to be honest with you. I mean, that's just how it is. It's a business. He's there to not only play but make money as well. He's trying to set up his future and make sure things are right for him. And honestly, that's the best move for him and his family and what he chooses to do. And he wants to know that he's a part of the future. So it makes too much sense almost. And that's just kind of how it is. I mean, these guys put their bodies out on the line, and I think fans take that for granted. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where he's just looking out for himself and for his family, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, plus I believe that the Tigers have found their right fielder of the future, even though it may take 3 years. They drafted Riley Green with the 5th overall pick in the draft, and I actually got a chance to speak to Riley's dad and some of his coaches, and I mean, the reviews on this kid are nothing but sterling. He's a high character kid. He will, he plays for his family, and he feels like he's part of the Tigers family now. And he's a kid that's going to give you every single thing he's got, and he knows how to battle adversity. He likes a challenge. When he was younger, his team moved up to play against the older kids, and obviously that was tough, and they lost a couple of games. But he likes the challenge, so he's up for the minor leagues. I think he'll go shooting up the system, and I think by 2022 you're going to see him as the offensive centerpiece of the new Detroit Tigers, because if you look at the Tigers minor league system right now, Casey Mize, Fado, Burrows, Manning, you have a bunch of really great pitchers, but you don't have that key hitter, and Riley Green's going to be that guy. And he plays center field in high school, but I believe he'll move to left or right by the time he's at the major league level. So I think Castellanos is smart by keeping his position there, but I think it does mean that we're likely to see him go sooner rather than later, and that bums me out. But most of the things surrounding the Tigers nowadays bums me out, other than the prospects. So that's about all I got on them. Our fifth segment today is going to be an interview piece. We got a chance to speak to a young man who recently graduated, and he was visited at his grad party by Darius Slay. This is pretty amazing, and I'm happy I got a chance to talk to him. So check out the interview and let us know what you thought about it in the comments.
All right, so I'm with Kam Register, and let's cut right to the chase, man. Darius Slay showed up at your graduation party.
Absolutely surreal. Craziest thing that's ever happened to me.
Tell me, I've seen your tweets, I looked through your Twitter feed. You reached out. I'm sure, as most people who tweet at celebrities, you thought it was a long shot. Describe the process, from the minute you sent that first tweet to the minute he walked through the door. What happened?
I mean, I'd say long shot is an understatement for what I was thinking when I sent that tweet. I woke up that morning and I don't know what happened. Something inside me told me to just shoot my shot. So I sent the tweet, and 30 minutes later, I think it was just so close to the time that I sent the message. He said when and where, and I'm like, no. And if you look at that screenshot, you can see I've talked to Darius before because he came to like a basketball game in my area, which I ended up not even being able to go to. And so he said that, and he said, might have to pop up. And I'm like, in my head, like I'm going through a million scenarios, it's like I'm being super skeptical. I'm like, he's just doing this to be nice. He's not actually going to come. He's going to like text me and say something came up. And then after that, it was like probably 2-3 hours before the party began, I sent him the full address and my phone number just in case. Like, I was like, let me just send one more message just in case he forgot. And he replied with, all right, cool. And so I'm sitting in the backyard. My family starts to show up, and I'm just sitting there. I'm eating like food and stuff, saying hi to people as they come in. And I see him walk around the corner. And I've never ran so fast in my life over to him. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. I'm like, I'm not looking at Darius Slay standing on my back patio right now. It's absolutely surreal.
And that's great. I mean, he just pulled up alone, right? Like he just showed up
all alone in a white G-Wagon, all alone.
So obviously this is a graduation party. Your friends, your family is there. What did they make of all of that? Obviously, you're in shock. You're up there trying to introduce yourself to your hero in person for the first time. But what are your friends and family doing at that time?
My friends and family are making a giant circle. Everyone's just got grins on their face. Everyone's taking pictures, picture after picture. He didn't care. He loved it. He's so humble, such a great guy. And my whole family was just in shock. I think they were more entertained about how I was acting. I wish I could go back in time and not act like a little girl, but I don't really regret it for anything. So,
absolutely. How long did he stay at the party, and what was the nature of his visit? Did he hang out? Did he eat? Did he talk to a couple of people? What went on?
Nah, this is the crazy part because like when I've been telling other people how long he stayed, like you can hear their jaws drop. He stayed here for almost 3 hours. We played water pong. We played basketball. His whole visit, he wasn't really just like sticking by me. He was going around introducing himself because not everyone watches football and not everyone can recognize a football player because of their helmets. He's like introducing himself, making himself at home. Like I told someone else, it just after an hour, it felt like there wasn't a famous person there. It felt like he was just part of the family. He fit right in. And he was just taking pictures, relaxing, signing anything and everything. It was amazing.
That's incredible. Did you guys get a chance to talk before he left? Did he, give you any advice or any, words of wisdom? It is your graduation after all.
I'm trying to remember, but this whole like saying hello and goodbye was kind of a blur for me. I don't remember what he said because he said bye and then he pulled his car up to the end of the driveway and yelled my name and told me to bring a Sharpie. It's Darius Slay, so I did it. And that's when he pulled some gloves out of his, the bottom of his seat. And they were the worn Pro Bowl gloves that he wore in the Pro Bowl. And he signed both of them on the wrist and handed it to me. And I'm pretty sure that in that moment, that's when he said congrats. And he said, like, see you later or something. And that just stuck in my mind. It was like, see you later? Like, what do you mean? And that's when he left, and that's when I started posting pictures and everything. And he replied with, we're going to get you and the whole fam to a game. So that's just another glory scenario right there.
Yeah, that's I think kind of the cherry on top of everything that is the Sunday of your graduation, you know.
Oh yeah.
What do you have? I mean, I would assume you're going to follow through with this, and you're going to try to get the family out to a game, and hopefully you'll get to meet up with Darius again. Do you have a game in mind that you'd like to go see?
As of right now, I will take any game. I mean, I'm hoping like maybe he's going to get us some good seats. Maybe we can meet some other players. As of right now, I don't care what game. It could be any team. But we're also going to go to a training camp, and I'm going to let him know when we're going to that too. So
nice.
I'm sure he'll probably meet up with me again at training camp.
Yeah, that's great. Just, as far, like, you've described this kind of like as a dream scenario. Obviously everyone who shoots their shot, as you put it, isn't gonna get this kind of reception. This is kind of miraculous, honestly. But what do you think that says about a guy like Darius Slay, who, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the league, and certainly one of the best defensive players? What does it say about a superstar like that who can be so humble?
I say that's just surreal for someone of his magnitude. Like, we're not talking like a backup cornerback, a bench warmer. We're talking about like a superstar athlete who that just shows that he truly does care for the community. And to him, he doesn't just play football. It's so much more than that for him. And he tells me how he stays humble and he'll never deny a picture, and because he knows people look up to him. And I feel like that's kind of something with celebrities over the past few years has just become not a thing. It's like people idolize themselves. I think he's more excited to meet the fans than the fan actually meeting him. It's like he's a rookie and this is his first time getting noticed in public. Like, he just loves it. He eats it up, and he just truly cares for the people who actually care about the Lions and him in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it safe to say that he's your favorite player?
After what happened yesterday, 100 trillion% yes, and I'm ordering a jersey when we get off the phone.
Who was your favorite player before this?
So Matt Patricia, I'm a big fan of Patricia, but he's not a player. I idolize Patricia. I'm gonna say Kenny Galladay maybe. What he's been able to do in what was he 3 years in the NFL so far?
Yep.
Or is it his rookie year last year?
Two,
what he's been able to do is insane. So I'd say I looked up to Kenny Galladay the most. But like now it's like Darius Slay. I mean Matt Stafford before, but that's a plain answer, Everyone likes the quarterback.
Yeah, it's true. So I think that's going to wrap things up, but I want to thank you so much, Kam, for talking with us. Yeah. And as a final question, we're going to put a little pressure on Darius. How many interceptions do you think he's going to get this year? And he's going to have to live up to whatever you say now.
Oh man, I want to shoot for a high number, but I don't want to jinx them. Let's see. Let's say I want at least 12, and I say that's easy. I say 12 is easy, and let's give him an easy challenge.
12 interceptions this season for Darius Slay.
Yes, sir.
All right, he's going to have to live up to it. Thanks again so much, Kam, for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for reaching out.
All right, have a good one, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, we're back from the interview. Chase, I'm sure you've heard that story before. Real quick before we wrap things up, what do you think about Darius Slay showing up at a guy's grad party? I mean, what if he showed up to yours? Wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah, I mean, given the fact that I just graduated, I mean, that would be really cool for, for anybody, honestly. I just think that's super cool that he took time out of his, I'm sure, his pretty busy schedule to pull up to this kid's grad party for a couple hours. And I'm sure, it made his day. I was reading a post and it said, he was a super humble guy and he was basically acting like he was a member of the family. He signed a bunch of stuff and took a lot of pictures. And I just think that's really awesome. Super cool thing for him to do.
Yeah, Cam said he was there for 3 hours, so really cool guy. Just a really great story, and I think that makes you happy if you have a guy like that on your favorite team. We talked about this with Cam, but he's a super humble guy, and he doesn't necessarily have to be. He's an elite talent. So really impressive story there. Props to Darius Slay. We'd love to have you on the podcast if you ever want to join, but I doubt we'll make that happen. But you never know, man. You never know. All right, that wraps things up for today. Oh, wait, there's something I wanted to talk to you about, Chase.
Right at me.
All right, I found a new show. We talked about the chef show a few weeks ago.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So I found Holy Moly on Hulu. It's an ABC show.
That's the one with Steph
Riggle.
Curry?
Yeah, Steph Curry's in it too.
Yeah.
It is.
I thought.
It's okay. Let me explain it first.
Yeah, go ahead and explain it.
It is a miniature golf tournament style game show where the players have to make shots on wacky course holes, but they also have to maneuver through the object. So, like the first hole in the series is a windmill, so they have to shoot it through the windmill. Easy enough, right? But then you have to get your body through the windmill. And it's almost like the show Wipeout, where they get whacked and they slam against something and then they fall into the water, and then that's how they lose a stroke. And I did not think that this would be good. It just started playing, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I think everyone should watch it. Chase, have you seen it, or have you just heard about it?
I've just heard about it, and I'm interested to see what it's like. Again, apparently, like we talked about in previous episodes, I'm anti-subscription subscription service because I'm not someone who wants to get HBO to watch
but it's
or
on
anything,
ABC.
But, yeah, it's on. Yeah, true, it is on ABC. You said it was on Hulu as well. I guess it was anything, but yeah, I'll have to tune in on ABC because I was actually laughing about it because if you know anything about, I think LeBron James got a very similar show, but it's a very serious show. It's called like The Race, or it's like called something like super intense, and it's like the best athletes or whatever going at it, and he's like the host or like the main producer of the show.
Yeah.
It's such a cool show, and then they give Steph Curry like some wacky mini golf show.
They make fun of the show the entire time. They know it's a joke, man. It's so funny. But
it's awesome. I love that they can make fun of it because I just think it's hilarious that, I think it's a good show for Steph Curry because, I don't know, I feel like he's just kind of one of the, he's a guy who I think he's sort of like a silly guy, but you don't really know it.
Exactly. It shows off his humorous side, and it was just, Rob Riggle's in it too, and if you know anything about him, he's absolutely hilarious, and they just, they do some funny stuff, so check that out on Hulu or ABC or however you have your means of finding television. But yeah, that's our little entertainment review for today. So before we wrap things up, Chase, where can the people find you?
So you guys can find me on Twitter at Chase Sussex, SUSSEX. You guys can talk to me about whatever over there. You guys can debate the NHL draft. We've been talking about a lot of that over there on my Twitter. And we've also been talking about it on the Hockeytown Rundown Twitter, which is my other podcast, which is Hockey DWN Run DWN. We'll be talking a lot about the NHL draft over there on our next episode. So be sure to go check that out if you guys are interested in that. And you guys are big Red Wings. We'll be breaking that down pretty soon.
Cool. You guys can find me on Twitter at David Rosenberg. That's ROSENBERGG, 2 G's. You can follow my other account at MSE Pro Wrestling. It's the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Wrestling section. I pretty much tweet everything about wrestling, and as we are speaking, I am watching the Stomping Grounds WWE pre-show, so I will definitely be live tweeting that tonight. By the time this goes out, I will have already be finished live tweeting, but make sure you follow that and check out the review that I'm going to post in the morning of the show in case you didn't watch it, so you can know which matches you should watch. And make sure you're following us here at MSE Countdown, and of course make sure you're following our main site's Twitter at MishSportsEnt. That's at MICH Sports ENT. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Great to have you. Thanks so much for Kam for the interview. It was a really awesome show, and we'll be back at you next Monday for the countdown. See ya.
Peace.